Welcome back to Autism Live. As I mentioned before the break, we have a very special guest who is joining us via Skype. DJ Phillips is joining us. He has been a fan of the show for a long period of time. I've often said we should put DJ to work because he works for us in a way.
Absolutely.
He calls us, he keeps us on our toes. He's been working really hard on a PowerPoint presentation about autism and watching every single thing that he can that Dr. Granpeesheh says. And he asked if he could come on the show to ask a question. So, DJ, welcome to Autism Live. We're thrilled to have you on the show for the first time.
Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it.
Well, we're thrilled that you're here, and I know we had an opportunity to introduce you to Dr. Granpeesheh during the break, and that was thrilling for all of us. I know you had some things that you wanted to say to her right at the start of the show here.
Well, Dr. Doreen, it is a pleasure to finally get to meet you. But before we get too far in, I want to take a trip down memory lane. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh has been working in the field of autism for 36 years. She started under the direction of Dr. Ivar Lovos, and then in 1990 she opened the Center for Autism, what we now know as CARD. After that, she created a web-based program called Skills for Autism, and then after that, she created IDT. And lastly, she just finished a book called Evidence-Based Treatment for Children with Autism, the CARD model, which you can get that on Amazon. And I read the book cover to cover. It is the best book on autism I have ever read. And lastly, just this year, she was awarded the Professional of the Year Award by the Northwest Autism Foundation. Hopefully, I can add something to that because at this time, I would like to present Dr. Doreen with the Autism Hero and Visionary Award.
Aww.
Again, Dr. Doreen is a Dr. Doreen is a PhD DCBAD. So at this time, Shannon, if you could please present Dr. Doreen
Oh.
Granpeesheh, PhD DCBAD, with the Autism Hero and Visionary Award.
And there we go.
CJ, that is so touching. You have no idea. You changed my day and week and month and probably year with that. I have to tell you. First of all, so nice for me to be able to see you finally on camera. Sarah has told me a lot about you, as has Shannon, and I really appreciate. You have no idea how meaningful it is to me that you have read the book, that you are following all the work that we do here, and that you like it and that you find it useful, and that you are saying all these things. I just love that, and thank you so much. It means a ton to me. You have no idea. And this makes me very proud. This will go in my office. I'll send you a picture of this in my office. And I will share it with all of my colleagues. Thank you so much, CJ.
And DJ, DJ, yes, and DJ.
I have a CJ here who's
That's
good.
true. And I know that you have some questions
Yes, DJ, go
that you
ahead.
have sent in. So you want to go ahead and start with your first question?
I know a 24-year-old blind male who has CP and autistic tendencies. He
And
he nods he nods when asked if he needs a drink. He grunts when angry, and he says one word when he needs to use the bathroom. How can we make his communication better?
Right.
And again, his father should be watching today.
That's fantastic. And that's a fantastic question, DJ, too. There's a lot of, people who are like this, obviously. Whether they're 2 years old or 24 years old, it's always going to be the same answer. Often we will drop down to what we're capable of when we're responding, or what's the easiest way of getting our intention across. So often what we do at CARD is, for instance, if I want to increase, there's many things that you could do. If I want to increase someone's response from one word to multiple words, then I can either prompt them visually. For instance, I can write out the response so they can begin reading it, like I want drink, or I will hold up fingers so that they know that I need a 3-word response, I want drink, or I can pretend not to understand until the person actually says. So I'll be like, and hold up the drink, and then I can prompt and say, I want drink. So you're going to be there's going to be a lot of prompting going on at this phase to increase the length of the utterances. It's important to know that if people accept the one-word utterances, then the individual has no real motivation to increase the utterance. So they have to, of course, you want to reward when someone expresses something, even if it's one word, but you always want to try to increase it as well, and those are just some ways. Withholding the reinforcer for a little bit of time, and then modeling and prompting the longer response.
Okay.
That's good, but what if you do, like, he is totally blind, he cannot see at all? What do you do in that case, which is why they're having trouble, because they were going to get him an iPad, because I had told them about the studies about if you pair iPads with functional communication, it actually increases communication according to studies, but the thing is, he can't use an iPad because he's totally blind.
Exactly, and that's actually, you made me think of something which, they really should produce some Braille type programs for iPads, perhaps a Braille board that could be put on top of the screen. Yeah. But in the meantime, DJ, one idea would be if you, for instance, if you're trying to teach I want drink, which is 3 words, I would prompt the whole thing. I would verbally say it, so you want the individual to model. So you would say I, and have him say I want, drink. And at the same time, I would perhaps do 3 fingers, one at a time, in the palm of his hand so he can feel it. So I want drink, so that he can feel the 3 fingers. A lot of times people who are blind actually have an amazing use of their fingers and can actually count that. The connection between the two would allow you then to gradually reduce the verbal modeling and just be able to drop down to doing this, pointing, touching the fingers. And that would be a prompt that you could then fade to this, hitting all 3 together, and then you could actually fade the prompt, and the individual would get the idea that now we're requiring 3 versus 1.
Thank you for those suggestions. I also want to remind viewers, in case Shannon forgot to do it, that Dr. Doreen cannot give child-specific advice because it would be a disservice to your child. So thank you for those suggestions.
Thank you, DJ.
DJ, you're doing a better job than I am. Are you trying to steal my job?
No?
It was a great job.
It is a great job. Okay, moving on to your next question, because you have a question about a full body sock.
The next question is, how can you prevent the overheating when using a full body sock?
That's a great question, DJ. I don't have good ideas for that. There are lots of different, this is a similar problem to several other things. Sometimes kids actually feel really calm when they're in a hyperbaric chamber, and that's because of the pressure and so on, but that's also an environment that's overheated, and they feel uncomfortable because of overheating. But the only suggestion I have is that you would reduce the temperature of the room, perhaps have fans around, or just increase the air conditioning when the child is using the full body sock. But this is a common problem, and I think people who make these body socks should consider making mesh ones, or ones that are made of like stretchable types of cotton mix rather than full nylon polyester.
Absolutely. Okay, now your next question, DJ, I think is a brilliant question. I can't wait to hear the answer to this as well. You ready?
My next question is, what is the difference between what is the difference between traditional ABA and the Denver model of ABA? A little birdie told me you are the leading expert in this field.
We hear this a lot, people talking about the Denver model.
Sure. The Denver model is extremely different. So let's just start with that. The Denver model is, I'm trying to shorten my response here.
Okay.
The Denver model says that it is a behavioral and developmentally appropriate model. It's a model that's based on developmental milestones, for instance. It doesn't have the very specific subcategories that ABA has, and it doesn't have the specific protocols that ABA has. So for instance, under the category, the overall name of ABA, we have like different types of ABA. For instance, we have pivotal response, discrete trial, natural environment. These are all types of ABA. We also have protocols. Such as, and I'm sorry I keep doing this, but my earphone keeps dropping out and I want to be able to make sure I listen to DJ.
Yeah.
So we have different protocols, which are things like shaping, chaining. These are specific techniques, right? Denver model is not doesn't incorporate those protocols at all, doesn't incorporate those subtypes at all. It is more, and my knowledge of the Denver model, let's be clear, is nowhere near my knowledge of ABA. So I have read the Denver model manual completely, and I've had a presentation on it by Lori Vismara, who was very well versed in the Denver model. But it is more of a program that helps interaction with the family member, let's say, or teaches the child. It's much more similar to an NET type model because it is much more loosely structured than a strict ABA basic program. ABA, don't forget, has generally, you may share some of the general ideas. For instance, behaviors increase when you reinforce. If you ignore a behavior, it'll go down. Both have those types of ideas in mind. But ABA follows a very strict type of process. Like, for instance, when you're doing discrete trial, you generally will provide, an SD or an instruction. You'll give the child a specific time frame to respond. Then you reinforce in a specific schedule of reinforcement. There's a predetermined amount of time in between trials. You want to make sure the child is successful at least every third trial, so there's 30%. None of that exists in the Denver model. It's more of a much more natural, general type of teaching, and it does have a lot to do with social interaction. It teaches it focuses on social interaction with the caregiver. So it's a very, very different model. And I know that recently the Denver model has been has received a lot of coverage for insurance coverage and funding coverage, but I do want to reiterate it is an absolute, and they do to some extent try to say that it is an ABA type thing. I don't consider it an ABA type program at all.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Now, DJ, we're running low on time, so I think we only have time for one more question. So question number 4, go ahead.
My next question is, what are some disorders or syndromes that are related to or have comorbidity to autism?
Yeah, DJ, you asked the best questions, let me tell you. This is one that I'm really kind of passionate about because I feel that there's a lot of other stuff with individuals with autism. There's a lot of comorbidity. The top one I would pick is anxiety. For me, I think there's a lot of anxiety in individuals who have autism and other disabilities as well, because just functioning in the real world is hard for those individuals. And so it's actually, with autism in particular, you have a lot of sensory sensitivity, and I think that leads to a lot of anxiety for our kids. So I see that as being the #1 comorbidity that exists. There's other things too. For instance, there's a lot of sleep disorders that are comorbid with autism. Medically, there's a large portion of our kids have gastrointestinal inflammation, which is comorbid. Some of our adolescents and, let's say, higher functioning individuals with Asperger's tend to also have some depression. So I would say those are, and of course, I used to say, of course, now it's its own classification. So I should say the number one thing they have in common is obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder used to be classified under anxiety, and now it has its own entire chapter in the DSM-5. I still feel that the self-stimulatory behaviors, the ritualistic parts of autism, are pretty much synonymous with obsessive compulsive behavior. And so that would be really the highest correlation I see.
Okay, really quick, Shannon, if you wouldn't mind, because this has been in the news a ton. My last question, and hopefully you have a short answer for it, is what do you think about giving medical marijuana to autistic children?
I love the fact that you persisted and
Even though I said
threw
we don't
in
have
your
time.
fifth question. I admire that in you, DJ. That's great. So, this is how I feel about everything, DJ. I'm very open to things. I'm not a judgmental person at all. I can't judge people when I haven't stood in their shoes. My personal feeling in regards to medical marijuana, my personal feeling is that it has too many detrimental factors associated with it in regards to chronic use, and that it will over time, the benefits are not enough. The detrimental part of it outweighs the benefits. Having said that, I just feel that it will slow down brain processing, it reduces learning capability, it affects memory in a bad way. There's a lot of things like that. Having said that, though, I have seen children and adults who are so unbelievably, I guess I don't want to say unhappy, but almost tortured in the environment because of the overstimulation. They're hyperactive, they're running around, they're self-injurious, parents can't handle them, they're just irritated. That's the word I was looking for. The environment can irritate someone so significantly that sometimes really something that is calming will help them. So I absolutely will not blame a parent for using medical marijuana in order to calm their child down. Sometimes you see children who are just hurting themselves from overstimulation. So that's my general feedback on it. I personally wouldn't recommend it, but I certainly understand. I have not lived in the shoes of a parent who deals with an aggressive or irritable or unhappy child who is self-injurious and so on.
DJ, unfortunately that's all the time we have, but you got all 5 questions in, and we're thrilled that you had an opportunity to be with us. Any last words to Dr. Granpeesheh?
Dr. Doreen, I just want to thank you very much, and if you get a chance, I did send my updated PowerPoint to Shannon, and I also plan to send it to Sarah, and I also wanted to thank you for getting that ABA study to Sarah. She did send it to me, so I do appreciate that.
DJ, it's a pleasure, and it's very meaningful for me that I met you. Thank you so much, and thank you very much for my wonderful certificate and award. It will go on my wall, and God bless you. You are an amazing individual, and just doing what you do, you're helping a lot of other people as well. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll be in touch still.
I'm sure we will. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Take care,
DJ.